The Holy Gospel according to Luke. Glory to you, O Lord. Jesus said, "Do not be afraid, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give alms. Make purses for yourselves that do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Be dressed and ready for action. Have your lamps lit. Be like those who are waiting for their master to return from the wedding banquet, so that they may open the door for him as soon as he comes and knocks. Blessed are those slaves whom the master finds alert when he comes. Truly I tell you, he will fasten his belt and have them sit down to eat, and he will come and serve them. If he comes during the middle of the night or near dawn and finds them so, blessed are those slaves. But know this, if the owner of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. 3 years ago, I decided to shake things up a little in worship. That summer, when I was still in my previous call, I opted for the alternate set of first readings, sometimes called the semi-continuous first readings, for the way they tell the same story in continuous fashion from one week to the next, sort of like a biblical mini-series. And I challenged myself to preach primarily on those Old Testament texts always read but too often neglected in Christian worship. The trouble is, as I soon learned, it was year C. Now that might not mean anything except perhaps to the other collared person in the audience, but in year A of the Revised Common Lectionary, the semi-continuous Old Testament readings focus on the major stories through the books of Genesis and Exodus. And year B moves us into the story of King David, all of which makes for compelling and engaging reading. And then in year C, we get the prophets. Year C, I learned, is not the summer to preach the semi-continuous Old Testament lessons. Now, sure, the first few Sundays are great, and I used them this year at St. John's, too, beginning with the story of Elijah's mysterious encounter with God on Mount Horeb, and the passing of the prophet's mantle to his successor, Elisha, and finally the miraculous healing of Naaman, revealing the outpouring of God's grace even to outsiders. Then comes the fun parts: Amos, Hosea, Isaiah, Jeremiah, all in liturgical succession, the prophets who don't mince words when it comes to God's preferential option for the poor, and a reminder of God's unending concern for justice for the oppressed and marginalized. All of which are good and important themes, of course, until it starts to feel like you're preaching the same thing over and over again every single Sunday, all summer long. Meanwhile, in the message of Jesus, in the Gospels, surely there's a bit more thematic diversity, right? Last week, although we didn't hear a sermon on it, we heard the story in Luke of the rich fool, as some Bibles title it, who had so much stuff that he didn't know what to do with it all. And so he built more barns, bigger barns, just to keep all of his stuff in, all of which comes as a mini parable in response to a request posed to Jesus: "Tell my brother to divide the family inheritance, all our stuff, with me." In the parable, after storing up all of his stuff, the rich man dies. And what becomes of his stuff then? The parable isn't meant to be an indictment against having stuff, per se, but in the tradition of the prophets, there it is, it's meant to be a somewhat uncomfortable redirection of priorities. Do we selfishly hoard our stuff, or do we use what we've been given as a part of God's commonwealth, caring for our neighbors in need and recognizing with gratitude the source of all we have and are? It's almost like Jesus is a prophet himself. And today, continuing along in his teaching in Luke 12, Jesus offers an assortment of encouragements and admonishments. Among them, sell your possessions, your stuff, and give alms. And just before that, he reminds us, do not worry. Consider the ravens and the lilies. How much more will God care for you, just as God cares for all creation? These teachings invite us to reconsider the meaning of abundance, not as stuff or wealth or money to be hoarded for ourselves alone, as though there won't be enough to share, but with awe and gratitude at how much there is to share and go around for all. Commonwealth is God's commandment. Common goods are meant to share, as one hymn writer puts it. Tables set and doors wide open, welcome angels unaware. Which leads me to our existential question of the day. Do you ever wonder why we're here? Except it's really a practical here and now question. Why are we here? Why do we all come to church? What is all of this for? I remember walking through the doors of my previous congregation for the first time, greeted by a tall, rainbow-colored banner in the narthex. It said, "Be the church, protect the environment, care for the poor, forgive often, reject racism, fight for the powerless, share resources, embrace diversity, love God, enjoy this life." Surprisingly, there is nothing on that list, though, about going to worship. Not that that list is meant to be exhaustive, or that worship isn't important, but truthfully, we're already really good at the worship part. It's the part of being church we often take for granted. Instead, did you notice that almost everything on that list has to do with other people? It's almost like the whole point of being here has to do not so much with ourselves, but those around us. It's almost like that's Jesus' point. Sell your possessions and give alms. Take care of each other. Literally, share the wealth. Goodness knows we didn't always live up to those ideals, but their very presence on that banner was a helpful reminder. This is why we're here. Central to our liturgy, but often overlooked, is the offering. Maybe we should start passing the plates again. The offering, described in our worship rubrics, that little tiny red print in the front of the hymnal. The offering gathered for the mission of the church, including the care of those in need. A practice not pulled from thin air, but central even to the earliest days of the church, as Justin Martyr, a 2nd century Christian theologian, famously describes. On the day named after the sun, all, whether they live in the city or the countryside, are gathered together in unity. Bread is set out to eat, together with wine and water. The presider likewise offers up prayer and thanksgiving as much as they can, and the people sing out their assent, singing the Amen. There is a distribution of the things over which thanks have been said, and each person participates, and these things are sent by the deacons to those who are not present. Those who are prosperous enough and desire to do so give what they wish, according to each one's own choice. And the collection is deposited with the presider, who aids orphans and widows, those who are in want through disease or through another cause, those who are in prison, and foreigners who are sojourning here. This liturgy is justice-focused, ensuring the care of all and the equitable provision for the entire community, those present and those absent. Sell your possessions and give alms. Take care of each other. Christ calls us to be the church in all of what that means. As the Spirit calls us here for worship around word and sacrament, to be fed and nourished, to be strengthened, to be Christ's hands and heart in this world, so too the Spirit sends us forth from this place to take care of each other, to take care of God's world, to seek justice and proclaim God's reign of love, bearing witness to God's amazing abundance for all.